Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marisa, and I'm here with my colleague Allison. We are from the College and Career Planning team. We are one of the offices, also in the Office of Postsecondary Readiness, and we work alongside schools and K through 16 leaders to achieve post-secondary access and success for every New York City public high school student. I'm going to be managing 2 screens today, so just bear with me if I have some moments of if I flub a bit, but we would actually really like to start with your voice instead of our voices. So in the chat, we would love to hear your name, your school, your role, and something positive. What is some recent good news at your school related to post-secondary planning? Did a student get a spot in their dream space for next year? Was there a good scholarship given to a student? Do you have a new system that is working really well? So what are some good things that are happening in your school related to post-secondary planning?
And Marisa, I just wanted to point out that we are recording this session, so just keep that in mind moving forward. Thank you. All right, let's blow up that chat with some good news.
Oh, it just finished a school-wide arts integration week instead of regions based around fall production. So inspiring. That's so exciting. We know that for a lot of our students, things don't feel inspiring. So any moment that we could get them to be excited is really, it feels like extra awesome this year. Students are starting to get their acceptance letters. That's really exciting too. It is that time of year, right, Al?
Yes. School-wide arts integration this week. Wow, that sounds so awesome. Fordham High School of the Arts. I work closely with you guys, with Allison Weaver. Happy to see you guys in here. Wow, at construction trades, engineering, and architecture, students are being linked to internships. Nice. Lots of college rec letters coming out of the New York Harbor School. We know what a critical piece of advocacy that plays in the admissions process. So thank you for writing all those. We have some virtual CTE after school programs. Loving to hear how people are innovating in after school.
Same. Yeah, 3:30 to 5:30 is it's a hefty after school program. That many days a week. It's impressive. I'm saying.
Awesome. Well, it's so good to hear all this good news on this snowy Monday morning. And keep it coming. As you hear things, shout it out, or things come to you, and we can celebrate them, because I think we need all of that in our lives right now, for sure.
I agree. And just so you know, I'm going to, as I go over the agenda for us, just one thing that Allison and I and the rest of the College and Career Planning team is that we really do believe in hearing from you. So use the chat throughout. We like to take the opportunity at these sorts of sessions to learn from you about what's really going on. You are the practitioners, you're with the students. Tell us, let us know what's going on with your kiddos in school. But just so you know, our agenda for today, we did a little bit of an opener. We're gonna do an overview of what the College and Career Planning team, also known as the CCPT, what our work is, what we do. Then we're going to zoom in on one aspect of our work, which is called match. We're going to go over the match framework and do a little data dive to see why match matters. Our team does believe in using data as a tool to identify strong practices and gaps in our services. And then we're going to do a little bit of a reflection, and then we're going to ask you to apply match to your practice. How might you use it? And then we'll close out. We also, at the College and Career Planning team, do take on, a little bit of a lesson planning model. And we like to have learning targets for all of our sessions so that you can understand exactly what we're going to focus on. So we hope that by the end of this session, you will understand the match framework and why match matters. You will also know how to connect with your college and career planning team point person. There is one point person for every high school in New York City, and access the match resources available to your school. We also are going to hope that you can identify one way to use the match framework and associated tools to support post-secondary planning at your school. Again, we really want you to walk away with clear tools that you could use. So please share any ideas you have in the chat. We also strongly believe that the best way we learn how to be better practitioners is to learn from our fellow practitioners. So your voices are really important to us in this space. But just, a little overview of who we are. The College and Career Planning team, we hope to improve access to high quality post-secondary planning experiences during the school day that supports students' post-secondary access and success. We also hope to ensure all students are well equipped to transition into higher education and workforce landscape, graduating high school with a strong match plan for the future. So how do we necessarily do that? Oh, also, thank you to the CTE and to Jessica for sticking with us. We actually had some technical difficulties this morning, so it's been really nice to have our colleagues at CTE be here ready for us. It was not the smoothest morning, but we do have this little video we're going to share that gives you a little bit of an overview of our kind of more targeted supports that we give. So I'm just going to press play. It's brief. Let's take a moment to just see what it is that we really do. Okay, so that was a sort of a lot of information if you've never really interacted with us before. So we wanted to go over a couple of details that were in that video. We mentioned supports, direct supports, and coaching. And this is kind of one of the key features of the college and career planning team. Our coaching model has evolved over the last 4 years. We've gone from 5-day intensive summer institutes to 2-day foundational summer sessions, to from a one-off PD series to a scoped out annual PD model. We've done micro courses and change projects and all sorts of iterations on how to coach schools. But this year, we had to continue our evolution and meet the needs of all of our students during this pandemic. And that meant shifting to a regional-based coaching model in which we have organized the coaching based on areas of the city and also types of schools. And we will give you who your college and career planning team point person is in the chat later. But this means that every single high school in New York City is getting a coach, and we're trying to do it as effectively as possible. And this is why we're in this space today, so we can also give you an idea of some of the work we do and maybe connect you with the person on our team that you need in order to support your students. Our coaching model really is a supportive model designed to collaborate and work alongside schools to learn how you accomplish your goals and help brainstorm and implement new practices for your school community. We really do believe in learning alongside our schools. So one of the things that was shown in that video that we want to dive into is the milestones, right? As you can see, there are 5 different headings or topics for these milestones, and they span the entirety of a student's high school experience. These are the different moments in a student's tenure in your school that they should be engaging in order for them to have a well-researched, individualized match plan for the future. So this means having lots of moments for them to explore. They should be spending their early years of high school exploring various pathways, understanding their personal options. This can mean career interest inventories, career day events, college tours, research projects. There's lots of ways you can do that. But one of the things that we really push on schools is that we would like our students in the 0 to 16 credits area to be exploring their different options. As they move up into as they become like upperclassmen and whatnot, we then hope that they are preparing for their future, right? They should be looking at the post-secondary applications that they want to fill out later so that they can hone in on their personal plans. Again, more college tours, maybe internship opportunities, taking the right exams that they need to take, volunteering and engaging in extracurriculars, all the things that the students need to do in order to make sure that they have a rich application at the beginning of their senior year, which leads us to when they're incoming seniors, they should be applying, right? We hope that all 12th graders are entering into the 12th grade, understanding where they wish to apply to, and ready to just finalize their applications and just press submit. This means creating strong match lists, gathering important financial documents, getting letters of recommendation, etc. But even once a student applies, there's more that needs to be done. The decision of where to go after high school can be very daunting. So we want them to be able to make a personal choice as to where they want to enroll. This means looking at their financial aid packages, discussing with their families what makes the most sense, doing the comparison of, am I going into a career track? Am I going into a college track? Where do I want to go? Making the decision as to what's next. And then we actually extend our supports after graduation with transition. We want to support students in the things that they need to do during the summer after they graduate. There's usually orientations, getting medical records, certain applications they have to fill out even after they're enrolling. So that transition moment is really important for us. So we also have a bridge program that helps students. But looking at all of this, we know that in your programs, you're already doing a lot of this work. And so we're not here to tell you what to do, but we would like you to take a look at our milestones. And in the chat, tell us, how and where does your CTE program align with the post-secondary planning milestones? And be specific. Again, this is a space for Allison and I to hear from you what you're doing to align with this work. So tell us, what are the things that you are doing in your school that are built into your program that are allowing students to engage in these milestones? And that's in the chat. Please get in there. Pull it up.
I think there's a small enough crew here that if anyone even wants to just unmute and share, that's totally fine too.
Absolutely. We don't want you to feel, please speak aloud if you need to. You have matching students with partners for career exploration through internships. We have partners who come in and speak to children about their skills and opportunities throughout the different trades. making sure students are certified in Adobe Photoshop. I wish I was certified in Adobe Photoshop. Make my life a little bit easier.
Leaning on partners to come in and speak with students, and making sure, you know, the curriculum is current and most up to date. Awesome. So great to see all this.
Yeah, I'm glad. We will copy the chat and like get that, because one of the things that the college and career planning team likes to do is, if we hear a good idea from one school, like I'm sharing it with another school, because if it works for you, hopefully it works for someone else. So all of the things that the CTE schools do around career readiness, we are like so interested in learning about the details of that. But we're actually going to break into a little bit more specific information that is sort of targeted more towards college match. And Allison's going to take us through what match means when we speak of it as a team.
Thanks, Marisa. And so I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the match framework, and just to kind of say, like, this is nothing new, right? This is something that as a team, we've just like codified as like, this is a best practice that we're seeing around the city. And so how do we make sure that all schools are kind of equitably using this mechanism for helping students build post-secondary lists? So when we talk about match, let's zoom in just a little bit more on what is really the foundation for all of our supports as a team. The match framework helps us think about how to connect students with post-secondary programs that match their interests, that are affordable, and where they will experience a sense of belonging and get the support that they need to persist in the pathway of their choice and ultimately earn a degree or credential. So what does that, go back one slide.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Marisa. So what does that really mean? So more specifically, match is a strategic approach to post-secondary list building and decision with the goal to achieve post-secondary success through a degree and credential. We know that where students apply and where they decide to attend can really make all the difference. There are over 5,000 degree granting institutions in the United States, and students need help to narrow down their choices and build a strong match list. So what does this work look like with students? We're talking about match for post-secondary pathway. We want students to have an understanding of the career and majors they are choosing to include on their lists and make sure that they offer those pathways. Additionally, we want students to consider the admission and grad rate for those institutions. We're talking about match for affordability. We want to put affordability at the forefront of list building with students. This means screening family income documents for eligibility for New York State Opportunity Programs, which is an academic and financial support program for students who meet specific economic criteria, and using data and affordability indicators such as percent of need met to evaluate post-secondary options. By considering this data at the list building stage, we can be strategic and ensure students have numerous affordable options come the spring of their senior year. And lastly, we're talking about match for belonging and support. We can examine college completion data disaggregated by race to see which post-secondary institutions are retaining students and supporting them through completion. So let's apply this to a student and what this might look like. Let's meet Eliza. You saw her in our video. She is our CCPT student, and she's probably familiar to some folks in the room just based on profile alone. She is a junior at College and Career Access High School in the Bronx. She's Latinx, and she will be a first-generation college student. She has a high school average of 91, and she scored a 1090 on the SAT. She works as an intern at Wave Hill, a garden in the Bronx. She's taken 4 advanced placement classes and is really into biology. And she's curious about college and career training options. So, Marisa, you want to talk about some questions she might be asking herself through this?
Yeah. And I think we like to keep the student at the start of match, right? Because it really is about identifying what is the best match for them. And there was a comment or question in the chat about like, is match like Naviance? And just while there is a match tool, match is a concept. It is a strategy, right? That helps you take a student through these sorts of questions to determine what might be their best opportunity, their best match after high school, right? So a student like Eliza is going to be asking like, what post-secondary programs might have a good track record of graduating students on time and getting credentials. It's important that we think about the data of a school or a career program before we necessarily have students apply there. Which programs are a match given her academic credentials? Can she apply and get in? What schools and programs offer a major career pathway that she's interested in, especially at the CTE programs, right? You have students engaging in so much career interest and internships in these moments where they're thinking about like what they want to do for a living, like when they grow up. Maybe a student wants to go to a college instead of a career program, but do they have a career, a major that aligns with what they've learned when they're with you? And what are the most selective colleges or programs that they're eligible to? And why should you include these? We're going to go into some data later of why match versus undermatch matters, but you want students to apply to the most selective programs they are eligible for. And again, we'll go into the data of that later. But that's just about pathway. Also, when you think about affordability, affordability is one of the primary reasons students do not complete post-secondary programs. So you want to really keep that, as Allison said before, at the forefront of the work that you're doing. So students should be asking and doing, gathering personal documents they should get for financial aid, to file the FAFSA. Their family has to have done their taxes, need to get all that information in order in advance. They should know their family's income and how it affects how much they will pay for college or a program. This is something that as the adults helping students with these applications, it's really delicate but necessary to sort of dig into where the family lies and their financial income so that you can determine if they are eligible for a lot of free programs. And that's the last question, right? What are the opportunity programs I am eligible for? There's HEOP and EOP. There's all these chances for low-income students to go to school for free or for very little money. And if a student is eligible for that, you really want to be pushing that, because the lowest cost option most of the time can be one of the best options for that student. But then there's also this social emotional aspect of post-secondary planning for students, and that's belonging and support. Can the students see themselves thriving? Do they see other students like them on that campus or in those rooms doing the work? Are there special programs in their post-secondary program committed to helping them academically, financially, socially? It's not just about what if I can get into that school and if they have my major, but do I see myself there? Are there people like me in that space? It's really, match for belonging and support is really key for students to feel like they should be in that program and that they can complete it. But there is data to this. So Allison's going to take us through why match matters for enrollment.
All right, so keeping Eliza in mind, right? Let's zoom out a moment. So we just looked at a student individually. Let's look at some citywide data on why this work around match is so important. So as a city, we've really moved the needle for post-secondary outcomes across the city. And it's really because of the people in the room right now, you guys, right? And those outcomes are definitely worth celebrating. In the most recent data that came out, 78% of students are graduating high school, and 62% of students are enrolling in a college or other post-secondary pathway. And that's up 10 percentage points in the last 4 years. But as a city, we continue to have a college completion problem. So of those 62%, only 36% of students are earning a degree or credential in 4 years. And the completion problem is closely connected to our city's debt problem. Of those students who don't complete, the likelihood that they will experience student loan distress is very high, and the impact is disproportionately shouldered by Black and Latinx students. We know that post-secondary affordability will be one of the most urgent needs we can address on behalf of our students next year and moving forward. Now, taking a look at this chart, this really kind of gets at the heart of what Marisa was talking about before around undermatching. So if you notice the horizontal axis on the bottom, and we'll be looking at the match tool in a minute that's going to talk about these selectivity categories. But the bottom axis shows the categories of institutions. So you have category 1 are the most competitive institutions in the country. Category 2 are highly competitive. Category 3 are very competitive. And what this is showing is that close to 60% of Black and Latinx students in New York City who are eligible for admission to the most selective colleges undermatch. And what that means is they attend institutions that are less selective than their credentials would show they're eligible for. So I just wanted to pause there for a minute because I know looking at this graph, sometimes it kind of brings up a lot of questions, and I don't want to just sort of blow through kind of talking over this. Does anybody have any questions, or is this bringing up any thoughts for folks in the room? And if not, you know, we can come back to it. I realize that some of this, if it's new, it might be, you know, we're synthesizing it on the go. But I want to just, this is an important facet of our work as a team. It's really making sure that we're, you know, connecting students with best fit post-secondary programs, right? So that we're increasing the likelihood that they will graduate and earn a credential.
Mm-hmm. Allison, can you speak to like what happens when a student enrolls in quote unquote an undermatch?
Well, we know there's a lot of reasons that could happen, right? But schools that are lesser selective also tend to have lower graduation rates. So we want to be sure that students are applying to schools to the most selective institutions that they're eligible for, or they're enrolling in schools with support programs that are really committed to them persisting and earning their degree or credential. So we'll be looking at a tool to kind of help you evaluate. I think it'll make some of this data make sense in sort of how you might apply it to your work with students. Okay, so just want to point out that the tool we're highlighting today helps students and counselors with building college lists, right? And really only one facet of it. Like I remember when I was a counselor doing this work, I usually had multiple tabs open on my computer. I'd have the College Board open where I was searching for majors. I'd have College Navigator open where I'd be looking at the grad rate and persistent rates. Then I might have SUNY's website open that had the educational opportunity profile. So there was a lot of different data points I was pulling from. And so what's interesting about this tool, it sort of pulls some of those data points into one place and allows us to kind of evaluate them in one glance. We're not suggesting that college is the better choice for students at all. We are suggesting that all students should be able to make the most informed decisions possible. And we're just offering another tool for you to add to your post-secondary counseling toolkit. So that's kind of where we're putting this out here. I will say, you know, the tool does not list academic majors, but this is a tool where you could use to help evaluate, you know, how the school does in terms of affordability, helping students graduate on time, and also that data disaggregated by race. So again, we're coming back to this idea that match is a really strategic approach to post-secondary list building and decision with the goal to achieve post-secondary success through a degree or credential, and that where students decide to apply can really make the difference. So how might we use data to help Eliza build her post-secondary list? And so as a team, we love data. I'm sure in your schools, you guys love data, you're looking at data. But what's cool about this is that we can really use that to help Eliza find her best fit list. So I'm gonna do a little demo for you guys with the help of Grumpy Cat, which may look familiar to some folks in the room. So I'm gonna just ask you to be patient with me as I get the match tool up for you guys and kind of show you how you might use this with students.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yep, I'm doing that right now. All right, here we go. So this is the citywide college match tool. And in a moment, I'm going to be having you guys have the chance to kind of get in it and begin to manipulate it yourselves, but I'll just do a quick demo to show you how I might use this to help Eliza begin to craft a list of institutions that she should research. So first I'll come to the selectivity chart here. And so how this works is we know that Eliza has a 91 average and a 1090 on the SAT. So as a good starting point, we would use this to sort of graph where Eliza is on here and figure out what her selectivity category is. So if she has a 1090 on the SAT, would put her in this band, and she has a 91 average, we would be looking at two categories of institutions, highly selective and very selective. So this would be a good starting place for us to start thinking about what lists Eliza might want to include on her list. So if we come down to the bottom here, I'm going to start with the highly selective category. So something I always do is just zoom this up to save my eyeballs, because we know that there's a lot of data on here. So as her counselor and speaking to Eliza, I ask her for her family's income, and I determine that she is eligible for New York State opportunity programs. So one of my first steps that I would take as a counselor would be to come over to column I and begin to apply some filters to narrow down this list. Because right now we're in like over 2,000 records or 2,000 institutions. So we want to begin to kind of narrow this down. And we know that New York State opportunity programs have higher graduation rates for students who are low income. And they really put affordability at the forefront too, in thinking about how they package students. So I would apply this filter and I would just say, show me all of the opportunity programs in this selectivity category. So you'll see it pulls up a list. These are all the institutions in New York State that offer opportunity programs. It's going to show you what the admissions profile is, and you'll see that Eliza falls right in there, right? So definitely Eliza, is someone that I would definitely encourage to research some of these institutions. Another filter that I might apply for her would be looking at graduation rates, right? So we want Eliza to be considering institutions that have the highest graduation rates, so that we know, because we know that students there are staying, persisting, graduating. So I might come over to, knowing that she is a Latinx student, would come over to looking at which of these institutions have the highest graduation rates. So you could filter it in descending order. So this is going to give me what, of these institutions, which have the highest grad rates for students who identify as Latinx. You'll see Skidmore is on there, Union. So this is a way that we can begin to evaluate institutions. Some other filters that I might apply when looking at affordability is thinking about, if Eliza's family, completes the FAFSA and it shows that she really qualifies for the maximum amount of aid, we want to make sure that she is applying to institutions that are actually going to meet that need, right? So in the example of, Skidmore College, that institution costs $70K a year, right? But we also know that some institutions do a better job of packaging students, particularly low income students, to make sure that their cost of attendance really matches what their need is. So another, I might come over to average percent of need met, right? And looking at, okay, filtering it in descending order. I'm seeing that Union College, we saw on the previous filter, they have a higher graduation rate for Latinx students, but they also meet 100% of need, right? So that's something, absolutely I would encourage Eliza, like, hey, why don't you check out Union College and add that to your list to research? Because we know, by including that institution on her list, there's a pretty, and she gets in, that institution's going to be really affordable for her. Another filter I might apply, if I find out in the beginning of Eliza's junior year that Eliza is undocumented. We know that is, the institutions have different policies regarding this, particularly when it comes to aid. So I might want to take a filter and say, you know what, why don't you show me all the institutions that are undocumented friendly? And this doesn't mean with regards to admission. We're not talking about admission. We're talking about institutions that offer need-based aid to undocumented students, which is really critical, right? Because getting into college is never the problem for undocumented students, it's funding it. So this is just an example of how I might use this. So we're in the highly selective category. So those could sort of qualify as her kind of match schools, but when we're thinking about building a list for her, we might also want to bump up a category, right? So go into most selective and look at what are the institutions sort of a category up that we might want to include as well, so that she has some reach schools on that list, right? So the same filter applied here, New York State opportunity programs. It's showing that she's kind of right on the cusp for, we have Binghamton here. I would definitely encourage her to even include Barnard on her list. And so we could pull from these as her reach schools, and then we could also bump down a category to think about what might be her likely schools, right? So applying those same filters. And obviously the filters that you apply will be different based on the student. If you are interested in, I hear all of these students talking about a specific institution, but I don't really know about it. You can actually come to the all colleges tab and do control find and enter in the name of an institution, and it will pull up the data for that institution. So one filter I sometimes apply is I want to show me all the for-profit colleges in New York State, right? For-profit colleges, we know, have lower outcomes for students. Students graduate higher with a higher amount of debt. And we know that they're not all created equal, right? There are some for-profit colleges that offer highly specialized programs that are not offered anywhere else. But we just want to make sure that we're exercising caution when students, name a for-profit college included on their list, and then we're just kind of applying just a higher level of I don't want to say scrutiny, but scrutiny to sort of that institution, and just making sure that it is affordable. So what I did is that I went to the all colleges tab and I said, show me all the for-profit colleges in New York, and then you'll see this list that will come up. An example of that, oops, that's going to pull up. And why is this important? We'll look at the outcomes for these students. Very few of them offer opportunity programs. You'll notice the graduation rates hover in the 20s for some of them, and the out-of-pocket expense for low-income students compared to attending a CUNY program, or even just the percent of need met, is much lower. So if we talk about debt as sort of the biggest driver of students leaving college, this is something that we really want at the forefront of our mind. So again, this tool is by no means, the only thing that you should be using. You should look at it as sort of one thing that you can use to sort of help students evaluate. So I've done a lot of talking. I'm gonna stop. And I thought that what we could do is, as a little group here, is let's get into the tool, all of us, and sort of play around with it, no matter how clunky it may be. And let's kind of see. I'm gonna stop sharing. Marisa, can you share again? And I can drop the link in the chat.
Yeah, and just there was one very specific question about what net cost means.
Yeah.
Is that for 1 year, for 4 years? Like, what does net cost mean when we see that on the tool?
4 years. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into. I'll drop the tool in.
I just put it in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
And also, one question that was in the chat that I think is really important to note is we were asked if you can share this with parents and families and students. And this tool, the citywide tool, has no personal or private information and can be shared across your community. There is a school-specific tool that has student data on it, and that cannot be shared. And you can get access to that through your college career point person, which we'll share with you later. But this tool, the citywide tool, this is all public domain. Share it around as much as you'd like. I believe that this information should not be withheld from people, and like everybody should be able to just easily see like where are the different colleges and what is the data for them. So we're gonna, as Allison said, we're gonna play around with the tool. And at this point, like, you can answer in the chat, but also just like unmute and ask a question as you're going through. Don't feel the need to silence yourselves. Like, please just ask away. It's a big document. So.
And I will say, just like some tips and tricks that I've found. So the first, actually, sorry, maybe I should be, well, are you, okay, that's okay. So when you open the link, when you click on the link, it'll initially appear as like a Google Sheet. And so I would not recommend using it as a Google Sheet, because the filters kind of get a little funky, right? What I would recommend is you download it as an Excel sheet to your computer, and that's when you'll get sort of the maximum functionality out of it. We'll notice that also the print is really small on it. So something that I always do is just zoom in. So under the View tab is zoom in and change it to 150%, 175%, whatever your eyes need to make this make sense. And as you kind of manipulate it. And then you'll also want to, freeze the first column of each tab so that you know that sort of what you're looking at, what institution it applies to. So you can kind of scroll through. So I'll let everybody get into it now. And I think that kind of getting in there, manipulating it all together, and even just kind of experiencing that trouble together is a good thing. So I'll let you kind of get in there. And once you've done that, if you can kind of just give us like a yes, I'm in, or downloaded it in the chat so that we know, because we're going to kind of jump into an activity that you'll need that open to complete. Perfect. Thanks, Linda. How do we access the filters? So when you download it to your computer as an Excel sheet, you'll know the filters work much better. So the filter for each column, you'll see a tiny little like box that like a little arrow that pops up. If other folks are having trouble, just let me know. Download is converted into a numbers file. Interesting. Okay. Let me share again, and I'll just sort of demo how I might do this just to help.
Yeah, when you.
Sure. So want to hit kind of just to kind of your point about the filters. So if you don't see the filters popping up, you'll want to come over here and sort of turn on the filters, right? To make sure, and then you'll know that they're on when you have these tiny little boxes over here. When you initially click on the link, it'll look like this. So what I usually do is I come over here and I click download and then save as Microsoft, save it as an Excel spreadsheet to my desktop, and then I open it up. So it would look like this. Sorry, you're getting a preview of my really messy desktop too. But this is kind of, and then here, if you're coming over here and you're still not seeing the filter. So as I mentioned, you'd come over to, the view. I make it bigger so that I can actually read the stuff. You'll want to freeze the first column if it's not already frozen so that you know what you're looking at. All right, hopefully that helped. Marisa, you can go ahead and share maybe the next slide and we can kind of jump into the activity. Does that sound good? And if you have more problems, just call them out and hopefully there's a question about the sheet with the selectivity chart. Is it interactive? No. So one of the points we'll make in a minute is that what we're highlighting right now is a citywide version. You're able to download a school-specific version that comes pre-populated. That'll already, so like on the school-specific version, Eliza's SAT, GPA, and predicted match category would already be on a tab for you to see. Okay, so let's get into the activity. So why don't we, in the chat, let's name sort of what do you think are the 3 most popular colleges students enroll in at your school? And just drop them in the chat. Roy, I'm sorry you're still having trouble. Maybe we can connect offline and I can help you. Okay, we got Lehman. Let's kind of call them out. BMCC, FIT, City Tech. I remember when I was a college counselor, there was a lot of students interested in Pace University. Throw that in the chat. Okay. So what I'll ask you to do now is, okay, we have some more coming in. City Tech.
City Tech. SUNY Maritime. Brooklyn, John Jay, Buffalo.
Howard, yep.
Alfred State.
Think about institutions that a lot of students even apply to, but they never attend. And why might that be, right? And we'll kind of look at some data for I know that definitely is the case for PACE for me when I was doing this work. And what NYIT, that's a good one. Okay, so now what I want you to do is to use the tool SUNY Delhi, Syracuse, Manhattan College, awesome. I want you to use the data in the tool and I want you to find those institutions and I want you to find the graduation rate for those. So if it's a CUNY school, you might want to click on the CUNY tab, right? And just play around with it. And if it's not a CUNY school, you could go to the All Colleges tab. And you can do like the Control F function, or it's all alphabetized. And I want you to, as you're sort of looking up these grad rates, to start dropping those in the chat too. Mm-hmm. I'll share. Pace University.
All right, we've got Lehman, 49%. Pace, 56% graduation rate. City Tech is like 14%. Is that correct? Allison, is that correct?
The answer is yes.
Yeah. And there's gonna be some data that's shocking to you on this. And that's why we want to share it with you, because yes, that's a yikes. That's New York IT is 51% graduation rate. Brooklyn College says NA.
It's on the CUNY tab, Brooklyn College. For me, it's showing that it's 58%. It's column P.
SUNY Maritime has a 66% graduation rate.
Oh, good, Roy, you're in.
Good.
Awesome.
Oh, good, Roy. Small victories.
All right, so I see you guys, we're kind of looking at just the overall graduation rate for these institutions. So now let's, first off, any reactions that folks want to share? I saw yikes. I saw like question marks. This is an opportunity for us to kind of just share what we're seeing, what's going through our heads right now. Regiment versus, I have a question. I'm not quite sure what you mean by regiment versus regular enrollment. We're going to look at disaggregated data of some of the opportunity programs in a moment. I see Marcia is kind of starting to look at the disaggregated data.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we jump into that, right? So for the institutions you just looked up some data for, why don't you go in now and start to look at some of the other indicators that are disaggregated by race and ethnicity? And why don't you drop those comparisons in the chart? Or in the chat, excuse me. I'm going to find what it is for PACE.
And just to kind of talk about that disaggregated data of how many of our different demographics are enrolled in the school and graduate in the school, that really speaks to that sense of belonging we were talking about with Match. If you have a student who is Black or Latinx and they're applying for programs that have very low Black Latinx populations there, you have to really ask that student, do they feel comfortable attending a school where they will be a minority? Will they not have as many folks who look like them? And also looking at the graduation rates for those disaggregated populations helps you understand if that student will attain credentials there. But it really speaks to the idea of belonging. We want to make sure that students are going to programs where they are not necessarily the only one, that they have a support system of people who are like them, that they feel like they belong there, right? Because studies have shown that students who enroll, non-white students who enroll in primarily white institutions might not feel like they belong there, even though we feel that they belong anywhere that they are academically fit for. That feeling of belonging might not occur. So it's important to see that data when you're talking to students about where to go next.
There was a question about also how to find just SUNY schools. What I would do is look at column B, I'll put it, and you can filter for in-state public.
So we have a question about CUNY, for example, right? So Chrisanne is asking if users have questions about the match tool, how they can get their questions answered. For example, none of the CUNYs had undocumented friendly indicated. So what would you do, right? If you're like, you have an undocumented student, but you don't see necessarily that an entire system is undocumented friendly, what do you do next?
Well, just remember that the definition of undocumented friendly within this tab or within this tool is they offer need-based aid for undocumented students. So these institutions in CUNY do not. However, students who are undocumented can apply for the New York State DREAM Act, and they should apply for it. Chrisanne, I see your question about a glossary of terms. I would highly recommend reading over the quick start guide on the very first tab of that, which will get at a lot of this. But also, to kind of Marissa's point, is that each one of you has kind of a direct contact on our team that is happy to kind of walk you through all this. And if we don't, like, whoever you're talking to doesn't have the exact answer, we can get them for you.
People seem to be enjoying the tool. That's a great tool. Harini's encouraging everybody to integrate this into their CFM lessons. And yeah, it is a great tool. It's a big tool. So that's why we want you to just play around with it as much as possible. There's like a lot of possibilities for how you can use it with students and families.
I just wanted to point out, like, when I look at the data for CUNY, like, it makes me feel really sad and frustrated. But I wanted to point out that, something that's really important. If we know that CUNY offers a really wonderful, affordable option. But we also know that there are programs within CUNY that have better outcomes for students. And so I wanted to just, and I'm not talking specifically about majors, but I'm talking about those support programs like opportunity programs, SEEK, which is offered at all four-year colleges within CUNY. And these are for students who meet specific economic guidelines. The grad rates for those programs are significantly higher than the regular kind of overall grad rate. We know it's possible folks in the room have heard of CUNY ASAP. ASAP is another sort of fast track associate's degree program where students get matched with an advisor to really kind of stick with them and support them through the process. They do block scheduling for students. So in the past, you might have a student who has a class at 8 in the morning and then 8 at night. And so what if that student has to work, right? That could be a reason that the student would drop out, right? Is that this schedule does not accommodate my needs. So they do block scheduling for students. They help kind of compress their classes in the morning or the evening if they need to be able to work. They offer a free Metro card, right? When you're thinking about affordability, they cover the cost of textbooks. And so just, when you're looking at the match tool data for CUNY specifically, I'm going to just jump back in there and share just again, because this was something that I didn't highlight specifically before, is that when we're evaluating these options, if you come to the CUNY tab, Zoom, that we're looking at, I know personally, I had a ton of students who went to BMCC, right? And BMCC, we're looking at their overall graduation rate is 22%, right? But students who are enrolled in the support program, which, staff members in school, by exposing students to these programs and helping them and really pushing for them to enroll in them, that grad rate jumps to 42%. So we just know when we're talking about match, we're talking about, what are the programs within any given institution that is going to increase the likelihood of them getting the support they need to persist and graduate. So that's what I always look at. Right now we don't have the graduation rates for other opportunity programs besides ASAP, but we're hoping to be able to include those in there. But we know in general they're much higher than the overall grad rate. Just wanted to call out that because I know a lot of our students go to CUNY, and that those are programs we should absolutely be connecting them with.
And something that Roy mentioned in the chat was, a lot of his students want to go to Stony Brook, but they're not realizing how challenging it is to get in. And I responded that this is a good tool for you. Some students, there's a lot of assumptions and myths about like CUNY being and SUNY being like easier to get into, especially with the CUNYs. And this helps really tackle that myth with families. When I used to work in South Brooklyn, all my kids assumed they were going to go to Brooklyn College, and that is a really hard school to get into. And so being able to dismantle that with kids is really key for them, making sure that they're applying to the schools that are a good academic fit for them, but also that CUNY is not necessarily your fallback option. It's not necessarily the easiest school. I've also had some of my schools use this tool to also help students make decisions later. So they get all of their acceptances, they don't know where to go. They use the tool to kind of break down the graduation rates, the affordability of it, so that they can help families make the right choice in where their students should go next. As Roy says, like Burke Business. I think a lot of students assume CUNY is easy. Burke is a really hard program. Their business school is highly competitive. So this also can help you dismantle some of those myths that our families have around the different public institutions in our system.
The snowplow was just going by my house. It was pretty loud, so I just went on mute. All right, so let's kind of jump into the final 2 slides of the day, and then hopefully leave some time for some voices in the room to share how you might use this in your practice with students.
Yep, let me get that up. Okay. So, and I see it already happening in the chat, so let's continue it, but also feel free to unmic yourself and say it out loud. But, looking at this about the match framework and the match tool, how does this make you think about your work with students in your school, and how might you integrate it into your advisement practice? You already do a lot of this work. How might this help you with that work? Pop it into the chat, but if you want to speak through some things, please feel free to unmute yourself and share out loud. We're not trying to keep you all silent the whole time we're here.
Okay, so this is Marcia from Intech Academy. I use college research as a project in my Microsoft Excel class, and I'm actually partnering with a social studies teacher for a course she's teaching about ethics, because I'm so concerned again about students' sense of belonging and feeling like they see themselves there when they apply to many of these colleges, and that can be part of the reason why they don't return, because they don't see themselves there and there's no support. So I want to help address that issue even before they leave our school. And I love this tool. It's a perfect timing for me to use in the project when I start Excel. But what's the problem with it working in Google Sheets? Because that's the platform we have now in this virtual environment. What are the technicalities in viewing it in Google Sheets? Can you just remind me of that, please?
So you can feel free to share it in Google Sheets. There is no problem with that. I just recommend, sorry, the snowplow is going through again, that when you want to actually manipulate it, that you download it as an Excel spreadsheet. So sharing it with Google, like you could put it in a Google Classroom with students, but just with a note, like for this activity, download it to your computer as an Excel sheet. I'm sure there's ways that you could manipulate it with a Google. I think sometimes it gets just like the boxes look a little scrambled. It just doesn't look as neat and tidy as if you're manipulating as an Excel sheet, but sharing it is no problem.
At least you got the snow plow. I don't think they've plowed outside my house all day, all night. So anything else? What else? Is there anything specific? I know earlier in the presentation, someone mentioned this is a great tool to collaborate with the college counselor. Other ways that we think that we might want to use this with our students and with the rest of our colleagues.
I see Danny shared how kind of presenting financial and demographic data in sort of one shot could be a really powerful thing for students and families. Oh, definitely including it in the career and financial management lesson. Is that what CFM is? I think I'm right with that. If I'm not, correct me. Love that idea.
I'm Pia from Basad. I write a ton of recommendations because I'm an 11th grade CTE teacher, and I often wonder when I see, the lists where they apply, if they actually, I just often feel like also the guidance counselor have so many students, like to be a support within the CTE for their applications and going through it, and that they hear another voice and maybe just their guidance counselor and see a tool, I think is great. And I can use it in my one-to-one or small group conversations with my students in the CTE classroom.
That's awesome. And just thank you for writing all those letters for kids, because we know how important those are and how time consuming they are.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I hear you. I was once an 11th grade English teacher, so I was the teacher that got hit up for all of the recommendations. And I often, in students saying, yeah, I'm applying to these programs, I often had a question mark of like, is this right for them? And I had no way to know that as an English teacher. And this tool would have really helped me. I would be like, oh, okay, I could look and like maybe be, like you said, that other voice. One of the things our office really practices and preaches is that college counseling should not happen by one person in one space at one time. It should be something that we're all talking about regularly. Students should be talking about their post-secondary plans early and often during high school. And this is a tool that gives your teachers, the people who don't necessarily know about post-secondary planning, all of a sudden they have access to all of this data that's really easy for them to dismantle and look at.
It's a great visualizer too. It's just, it's great to be able to visualize it.
All right, well, let's jump into kind of the final slide, just so everybody knows kind of what's available to your school right now. So on the right side, you'll see the citywide tool. That's what you already all have access to, right? Download it to your computer. It does not have any sensitive student data in it. So this is something you could share immediately with students, right? And you guys have the link for that, but before we end, we'll drop the link again and make sure you have that. I also want to point out that there is a school-specific tool that's available in the data downloader that has a special tab that will list your entire senior class. And in the next few weeks, I would say by the end of February, we're going to have one available for your junior class. So this is going to be something that you'll be able to use immediately. This has very sensitive student data in it. It has their likelihood of being eligible for opportunity programs based on, income. It has IEP status. Like, this is something you absolutely do not want to be sharing with students. But if you want to kind of just get a sense of, and how you might even just think about grouping students and kind of providing differentiated supports, it's a really great tool. So just know that the junior version's coming soon. You can connect with your point to help access that if your whoever does the advisement in your school doesn't already have access to it. Next slide. Okay, so what you're leaving with today is we're going to drop in the chat a link that if you're unsure of who your college and career planning point is for your school, you'll have the person's name and email address. So I'll drop that right now.
And we are also leaving you with the citywide match tool with a little bit of like a how-to guide and a student-facing match workbook. Our team has already designed some lessons and activities that students can be doing with this match tool. So we're sharing that with you. We also, as a team, I always say it this way, but like, you know, as teachers and educators, like it's fine for us to steal and take from each other. So we create lessons based on what we've heard other schools are doing, and we're sharing them with you. Take them, use them, share them. Like this is not private information in that in the sense, like if we have resources for you, they are meant for every single faculty member across the Department of Education. So please share it out if you know the right team. If you have a team that does this work, share this stuff with them.
There was a question about whether teachers can access the citywide tool. Basically, anyone you have to have like a special designation to be able to access student level data from the downloader site. So if you're interested in accessing it, I would just kind of send an email with your principal on copy so that we could just get the okay to share that with you.
Mm-hmm.
So we just put the citywide version of the tool. There is another how-to guide I'm going to share right now too, that if you want sort of like a deeper dive in how to use this and even just how to manipulate Google or Excel and applying filters, there's videos in there. It goes over in depth the data points and sort of what they mean. So I would say before you really start using this, to just familiarize yourself with the how-to as well as the quick start guide. And then lastly, if you are looking for an activity that you can use right now with students, I'm going to share the student match workbook, which is something that you could use in a Google Classroom with students. And basically, it takes them through the same activity that we just did as a group here. It takes them through that. There's videos. There's an opener activity. It's self-guided. As well as there's slides that help the student determine if they're eligible for opportunity programs. So I dropped those things in there as well. And that's it from us. If you have questions, reach out to your point or feel free to email us. And thank you for spending the day with us.
Yeah, thanks. We look forward to, and if you have like great success using this tool, please contact your college and career point person and like let them know what worked and what didn't work. Like I said at the top, we like to learn alongside you, and it's really important for us to hear from practitioners how our resources are helping them, if they're helping them at all. So please use it. Tell us how you used it. Tell us how it went. The College and Career Planning team is here to learn all of the cool things you do when it comes to post-secondary planning with your students. We just want to hear what you do every day so we could share that out with other schools. You do the work, you do the great stuff. Like, let us know when you have a good win. We really want to hear about your wins.
And also just like a huge thank you. We know what a challenging time this is, and everybody here, just the level of commitment to helping students, I'm just immensely appreciative. So
yeah, thank you. We could not do what we do if you all weren't doing the awesome work that you do every day. It's great. And we're glad I'm hearing a lot in the chat that this is really good timing, and I'm glad this is like timely for you also.
Thanks, Giselle. Augustin is my son, so every time I see a version of that name, I get excited. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Have a wonderful day.
I was quiet, but I think I learned a lot. Now I'm going to have to decompress with my colleagues and see what we come up with. It's very good.
One question I have, which is somewhat, and I don't know if you guys ever have thought of this, but because of our specialty, our students are applying to schools like the CUNY program for architecture, and they have portfolio needs. And it's interesting, I've been just talking to our guidance counselors about it. We are sometimes surprised. Why did somebody go